Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. Today joined by Alex and Nam. Nam is the winner of the Calling Dallas. Sorry, the winner of Calling Dallas hyphen Fort Worth. I don't know if that's important to those of you who are in Fort Worth. But guys, hey, thank you so much for joining us. You guys are, this is the Card Guys. This is your team name, the Card Guys.
That's
Yes,
correct.
the Card Guys.
Okay, I have so much things to talk to you guys about. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for being here. Nam, do you have the cold foil with you?
I don't. I actually left it in Dallas. We have a buddy in Dallas, and I'm getting it graded right away. We looked at the condition. It looks really good. I think it's an eligible 10. So
Wow,
Yeah.
genius.
I've looked at a lot of cards for a BGS grading, and if any of the cold foils have a shot, it's this one. I mean, I didn't see any whiting on any of the corners, which is the killer for most of them. And
Wow.
I've seen a lot of off-center ones, and it didn't have any centering issues either. So
Woo!
it's definitely
Art
a
Wales.
candidate.
Art Wales, if you're listening, make sure you get on it. Make sure you get on it. Congratulations, and that's genius. I mean, BGS is right there in Dallas, so
it's right
save
there.
yourself a lot. Did you drop it off like yourself or?
No, we have a buddy staying there. They're unfortunately we had to leave Sunday night, and they're not open on Sunday. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
He's gonna get it done Thursday, and we'll actually know that day. It's a 1-day process.
Yeah, I think he's going to do the walkthrough process and hand them a really expensive card and walk out and come back, and hopefully it'll be in a slab by then. So
that's awesome. Well, congratulations on your, regardless of what it grades in, huge paycheck, and more importantly, congratulations on the prestige and honor of winning. Really, I guess is it technically the second calling year? They did some calling thing, but anyway, being one of the very few people to call themselves the United States the calling champion, so that's awesome. Congratulations.
It's still unbelievable. I'm still shocked now.
Yeah, let's just start there. Tell us how you feel at the end of that game. Like what's going through your head, what's going through your brain. None of us will ever be there. Well, Alex, you might, you're competing, but the rest of the viewers, most of you aren't going to be there, so we can live through Nam here.
That game, I felt like I was in control the entire time. There was one little mishap that we missed, the little frostbite, but I did have enough to pay the extra one if I had needed to. But for most of my games, I always felt in control. There was no game that really had me at the edge of my seat.
Well, when you're playing the fatigue there, I mean, you've got to you're in the driver's seat. It's basically the opponent's game to figure out how to win, right? Is that kind of how that works when you're playing fatigue? It's like you've got your strategy, you're just gonna kind of play it, and they got to figure it out.
For the other two leaders, they will have dead draws. Like Briar will have dead draws, and those are the turns where you want to capitalize. So I can always just swing a hammer, or if they have just an Arsenal pass turn, I can actually go in for a bigger attack. So a lot of those turns, I get to snow under for 7, mulch for 6 or 8. That's when I'm really pushing cards out of their hands, making their turns weaker and also their deck slimmer.
So you were just confident the whole way through.
I felt pretty confident all the way through. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, let's back up. Let's talk about how you got involved into TCGs. I want to hear a little bit about the Card Guys because I want you guys to get some recognition. I know the whole team practices a lot, and this isn't just Nam. This is a whole team experience. So I would love to hear how you guys got involved into card games, and then how you end up at the calling in 2021.
So Alex would have to start with the Card Guys because Alex and Kyle are the ones who actually started, and I got picked up along the way playing Dragon Ball Super, and that's when I was introduced into the team. I actually played card games probably all the way back to 2008. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't really play competitive, casual. I moved to Cardfight Vanguard, and then after that I moved to Magic the Gathering. I've played probably almost every card game.
You're playing these games at the highest level, at the competitive level?
Once I started playing Card Fight, yes. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the only game that I did not play professionally.
Okay, cool. Any other big wins on your belt, or is this the first kind of big, huge?
I've won a couple ARGs for Card Fight. I've topped plenty of PPTQs. Nothing too far in Magic. I do have a couple tops in Dragon Ball Super as well.
Cool.
No wins, but multiple tops.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was one of the conversations, from other previous calling winners that we've heard too. It's just you guys all have history of playing these card games. It's crazy. It's not just like people who just picked up, Flesh and Blood. You don't often hear like people who just picked up Flesh and Blood for the first time and first card game winning. You can tell it's a different breed of people who have practiced and played other games that really line up here. So. Alex, how about you, man? Tell us a little bit about how you got started, and then I'm curious about how the card guys started. I know you guys were pretty big in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And you guys have a pretty good following on YouTube.
Yeah. So I started playing card games probably back in like 2013, something like that. I can't remember exactly the year, but it was with Yu-Gi-Oh. Kyle was a good friend of mine, and it's a funny story how we started getting into cards and whatnot. He was already in cards for a while. And we used to play video games together, and I could hear him shuffling cards over the microphone. You know how people like to flip their cards or whatever while they're thinking.
Right,
yeah, exactly. A little nervous tick. Well, we'd be like in between like game battles matches for Call of Duty or something, and I could hear him doing that. I kept asking him, man, what the heck is that noise? And he used to always just brush me off, like, don't worry about it, And finally one day he actually told me it was Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And what he didn't know is, growing up as a kid, I like collected the cards or whatever, and I was like, so my brain was instantly intrigued, and and so we went down this path of Yu-Gi-Oh for a while, and I was trying to make some money flipping cards off like Craigslist and stuff, and one of the things that I was like, I need to actually play this game to understand like the finance behind the cards and predict which cards are going to go up in value. So I was like, teach me how to play. And so he taught me how to play, and I got sucked in and started playing games, and finally got to a point where it was around probably the year before Dragons of Tarkir came out in Magic. I forget, 2016, 2014, somewhere around there, that I had quit playing Yu-Gi-Oh because the game got really frustrating for me, and I picked up Magic, and I just loved Magic so much. So I just kept playing Magic up until the beginning of 2020, and when COVID hit, I had all my staples and everything. I realized I wasn't going to play for a while because obviously nobody could go outside, and sold everything and found out about Flesh and Blood in probably October, November, something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But Card Guyz started way back in the early Yu-Gi-Oh days. We had this idea for a team. We always had a bunch of people that played together, and we kind of actually made teams a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, they weren't like our big thing back then. So like people didn't have like teams that like called themselves something and went and competed against other teams while you're competing at an event, essentially.
Right.
And so we started the team, and came up with the name the Card Guyz TCG. It just kind of fit, and I was like, this seems really perfect. Like you think about a trading card game TCG, the Card Guyz TCG. I felt that it would be really easy to remember, and so we were like, that hit it off straight away. We got like a logo made and everything, and we started doing teams and competing against other teams, and
that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And then, Nam, how did you get connected there?
So I went down to Macon. This is where I met Kyle for the first time in a Dragon Ball event, and we kicked off. They were also super nice, and we got to talk a lot, and it's just how it happened. We connected a bunch, and the Yu-Gi-Oh team kind of disbanded, so they weren't really doing that thing anymore. And it's like, hey, why don't we try to do Dragon Ball? I think this game is going to be pretty good. And we got all our friends together and did the same thing. We just brought it back, revived it.
Yep.
That's cool. And then you switched it over to Flesh and Blood. So tell me a little bit, how did you guys practice, if you don't care to share the secrets and your guys'
fun.
Yeah. How did you guys practice getting ready for, Dallas?
There's a lot of just looking at cards, honestly. Like we did all like 4 pre-releases. We went to every pre-release we could to get our hands on as much knowledge and as much practice as we could right off the bat. We knew sealed was going to be a thing coming up, and coming from a Magic background, it's both of us, Nam and myself, both have a significant background in Magic, and it translates really well, the drafting process and picking cards and that sort of thing. So we did fairly well with it to start off the bat, and we also realized that there were quite a few people in our area that were decent players as well. As you go to the pre-releases, you start to kind of pick up on who actually cares about playing the game, more so
What
than
area
just
is that?
in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and so we did a lot of that, and then it was just a lot of going over the database, like the Fab database, just reading all the cards and making sure we knew what they all did, and looking for interactions while building constructed decks, honestly, because when you build a constructed deck and you can figure out the synergies and stuff, you'll be able to find those synergies a lot easier in the drafting process with how they work together and such. So you just open up a bunch of product and play a couple sealed events, play a couple drafts, and you'll start to figure it out.
So for those of the people who are listening who didn't pay attention this weekend and are here, explain to us what the requirements were, because there was multiple different formats leading into this event. It wasn't just all one format. How, explain to us what all that stuff was and how you performed.
So the first 7 rounds was sealed. I actually, unfortunately, lost my first round to O'Brien. He just had too much arcane.
Who did you play in sealed?
You played
I can't
Oldham.
remember his name. I played Oldham. I played Oldham throughout the entire tournament. I played all 4 Oldham decks.
Okay.
So the first 7 rounds sealed, and then after that, top 64 was a draft, and then after that, we had a top 32 draft.
Okay.
And then top 8 drafts again.
Dang.
I drafted
4 drafts.
Right.
So
you start.
I don't even think I knew that it was 4 drafts. I think I thought that you just drafted twice.
I think it's 3 drafts, right?
3 drafts and 1 sealed.
Yeah, so you start with the sealed event, which is like the 6 packs.
Yeah.
That's actually the hardest stage of that tournament to get through, because there's the most variance in that section of the tournament.
Right, and I hear Briar is extraordinarily good.
It's extraordinarily good because it has the most commons and generic.
Yeah.
Like it has you can pull 4 Bramble Sparks in a sealed pool. That's just something that's much easier to do than in Oldham needs more defense reactions and things like this to really function really well.
So did you plan on playing Oldham all the way through, or did you make some decisions based on your card pool? What led you? Let's start with the sealed pool. What led you to go there?
For sealed, I actually did open the most Guardian stuff. So my Guardian pool was actually very good. I got to open Summertime Shelters and Turn Timbers, which are pretty key in that deck. I was like, well, I actually wanted to play Oldheim. I went into the tournaments I think Oldheim is the best deck. Fatigue is probably the way to go, and luckily, fortunately enough, that's what they gave me. Someone was smiling upon me, and that's what I went with, and I did well. So I was pretty bummed losing the first one, but went out, and that's what I did. Went 6-1.
It's a good mentality.
That's pretty hard to recover from in Flesh and Blood too, losing your first round. So just sticking with it, and that's incredible. That's a great story for any of you guys who are there and have trained, have practiced, and then I don't know if mistakes happen wherever round 1, but you got to stay in it. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
So all right, give us some pointers based on what you did for sealed. What are some things that you looked out for? What are some ways that you beat Briar a lot? Explain to us how your Oldham deck beat Briar, and what was it that you were, because I've heard this all the time argument that sealed is busted, Briar's too OP, but here you are saying that you basically won 6 rounds with Oldham. Explain to us a little bit about that.
So I played 4 Briars and then 3 Oldhams. Actually, I didn't see any Lexi. The Briars, most people playing Briar are actually, so in sealed is a little different. You don't get the drafted, so they don't get to fight for cards. But the way that Oldham works is that you get pay 3 if it's an earth pitch, then you get to block the next 2 damage. That includes the arcane damage. So if they're attacking with a sword next, which is the hardest thing to block, you want to full block the first one and then preemptively activate Oldham's ability to block the next 2. So their first damage each turn, if they're attacking with the sword, is the arcane damage. So it will block the arcane damage first, and then you just block with another card in hand. Most Briar decks want to stay as low as they can, 30 card minimum, so they can see their cards, rapid fast, their combos right away, and that means that's better for me. I actually got to play 41 playable cards in
Wow.
my sealed draft. So I played everything that was available to me.
For
Yeah. So
anybody
you
that
just,
doesn't know, that's a lot.
yeah. So you just went with all the cards that were available to you, basically.
Yes. Everything that was playable in my deck, I threw it in. All the elementals, all of it in there.
Wow. Awesome. So then you're just blocking and then trying to do the defense reaction to prevent the thorn, Rosetta Thorn.
Mhm.
It's my
The
spoiler
arcane
card. I
damage,
should
yeah.
remember the name right off the bat. But yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, you want to keep up the pressure too, because you want to be able to hit with a hammer every turn.
Yeah, so that's how you keep it. I was just gonna ask, how do you turn it then? You're keeping up the pressure by swinging with your hammer every turn.
The
Just kind of-
second they start to block, they've lost the game. If you watch his match against like Lexi and like one of the camera matches, actually probably the finals is a good example of it. The second they got towards the end of the game and his opponent was able to stumble on one of his turns, not put out enough damage to get a bunch of cards out of Nam's hand to block, Nam was able to attack back for like 8. And I mean, his opponent was like, yeah, if I block with my whole hand here, I'm never getting back into this game because Nam's gonna have a full grip for the rest of the turns. Because his deck can't block because he doesn't have a weapon to swing back with. He needs cards in his hand to have arrows or whatever to shoot, and so that's why he kind of just laid his hand out at the end there, and it was over the second he got to swing back. So
that's awesome. All right, so then you do multiple drafts. Now tell us what you went into. This is something I always question about drafts, and this is why I love having these conversations with people, because I get to ask the questions and nobody else asks these. When you go into a draft, you're just going, like, you just went in like, hey, I'm playing Oldham, doesn't matter, I'm in, or do you wait to see what happens? And I know it's probably different for other people, but I'm curious about for you.
For me, I actually did have the mindset of just playing Oldham the entire time. That was my game plan. Unfortunately enough, my first pack did have a turn timber, which is one of the most important cards. Like, well, there you go. I'm in. I'm locking it right here and now. For like even the top 8, like I opened my first pack and it was red Rainbow Spark. I'm like, man, this might be a really good Briar deck coming up here. And then I was like, I'm gonna stick to my roots. It's been doing well. We'll just pick a Guardian card and pass. And then the next card, it was another good Runeblade card. I'm like, man, this deck would have been insane. But I already did it, so I just kept going with the Guardian. I did hate draft one card. It was a red Lightning Press. I didn't want a random +3 to just kill me out of nowhere, or have a really good, because there's a lot of on-hit effects, especially in Lexi, to make like frostbites and stuff. Like I didn't want them to just randomly throw another like additional damage that I couldn't block. So that was the one card I really didn't want another person to have.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I played 40 cards in my top 8 deck.
Yeah.
So
you just run them again. You're just running everything, just sticking to the plan, just sticking to it.
Fortunately enough, my first 15 cards all playable. My last card was actually something I could put though in my deck, and I was like, all right, there we go.
There you go. That's awesome. So when you guys practice that's what you practice too? Like you were just like the whole way through, like that's where your brain was for the whole tournament?
So in practice, we tried all the different decks. Like we played Briar Earth, we played Briar Lightning, which also was really good. Lexi was pretty good, but Oldham Fatigue was actually just killer. I think that was what won our drafts most of the time. Like
I think it's important to note that when you're in a draft scenario, it's not always like he had a game plan in mind, but the game plan came from the players that he was playing against as well. Because he's been in draft pods at multiple stages of this, and people keep passing him. Like I think you told me you had like a 4th pick Terra Sunder at one point or another.
I did. It was a 5th pick Terra Sunder. It was yeah.
I mean, like when people are passing you cards like that, it's free and open, and you already know the strategy very well. So there's no reason to deviate from that. But if you expect like this is a key thing to think about for Cincinnati, obviously people are going to know about the Fatigue Oldham strategy. So it might not be the best option in your draft pod there if you have 2 people like Knob at the table thinking they're going to take all the Guardian cards, because you do need a certain number of playable blue guardian cards and things like this, and so you can always change. You know, maybe grab some elementals and think about it for a couple packs, and then decide what you're going to do based off of what you're seeing.
Yeah,
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about the idea of people just kind of the next event. That's
Right.
like relatively
Yeah.
soon too. Like the next
So-
event, people just hopping in and trying to recreate what we're
the
telling
cat's
people
out
to
of the
do.
bag. So yeah, people know about it. The cat's out of the bag. They can't. They'll be fighting for these cards. The meta's probably definitely gets shifted. Not everybody's going to try to play Briar anymore. They're actually going to be pretty even among the heroes now. I think that this is a new strategy that you can do.
Yeah, you think even in sealed that's going to be committed?
I think Briar's still going to be overwhelmingly
Wasn't
overrepresented
she
in
like
sealed.
80% or something like that?
Something
It was
like
very
that.
high
Yeah, it was.
percentage.
Yeah.
All right,
Sealed
let's
is
talk about
probably
that
the
because I'm
difficult,
curious. Because you guys are high level and I'm an idiot. You guys are high level competitive players and I'm an idiot. Do you like that? Like for the nationals, isn't it sealed coming up at the beginning of the nationals too?
I think it might be draft and
I
classic
think
constructed.
it's draft and classic constructed.
Okay, then no issue. Okay, my conversations must have been wrong in the past.
No, I mean, I haven't looked 100% at it.
Yeah.
We're just trying
Yeah.
to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Um,
So you already said that you kind of felt like you were in control the whole way through. Is that just because you're playing the control deck and you know it's working out for you, or is that because you just really were just dominating the whole way?
Tell them what you play in classic, by the way, Nam, because that's
so I played Bravo in classic, so it's not anything new. I've played Fatigue in Bravo all the time, so I actually know what I'm doing. Like just block as much as you can, but also leave a card in your hand so you can hammer. You know.
right. This
Yeah.
isn't
Like,
Nam's
it's-
first. Well, he did.
Yeah.
He got 23rd in Vegas with Bravo, so
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
a
so-
very experienced Guardian player.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I was dominating. So it's open knowledge to actually, once you present your deck, ask your opponent how many cards they are running.
Oh.
So I would sit down, especially if it's another Oldheim for the mirror match, like how many cards you playing, because it's open knowledge. And most of my Oldheim players actually only ran at most 34 cards, and I
Wow.
was close to 40 every time. And they weren't utilizing the hammer as much as I was.
Right.
So they're attacking with actual cards, and their cards are dwindling. Their deck's dwindling, while I just get to pitch and attack with a hammer every turn.
Gosh, yeah. That's something I'm learning. I'm playing Oldham in Classic Constructed right now, and just the card advantage at the end of the game that you have because you've just been kind of pitching and whatever and utilizing the hammer. Like the weapons add such a card advantage to the deck if you're utilizing them well, which is a great point that you made. Where like some of the other heroes don't like Lexi doesn't have the weapon that is actually swinging; it's just throwing cards at you, and so like that's another like huge advantage that Oldham has over the other heroes. That's super cool.
That's why Dorinthia was actually very good in Blitz, because they didn't really need anything. They can keep one card and still attack for 3. And
It makes a ton of consistency when you can use your weapon every single turn and rely on it. Like the consistency factor there is massive. I don't think you'll ever catch me playing Dorinthia though. I just don't like her. I like Cassie. Cass is my jam.
So Kasai doing very well in Blitz on the side events.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've won, what are you doing with your cold foil tunic?
well, it would be nice to keep, but once it gets graded, I'm gonna throw it up. If any whales, big ballers wants to spend some cash on it, I'll definitely fly it out and hand deliver it to them.
You gonna go to Disney World?
We're
You should just go say, I'm going to Disney World.
we're going everywhere. We're gonna have a good time.
That's cool. So, you preparing for nationals? Tell us what you're doing. What you're allowed to tell us.
My team has a different deck in mind, but I personally don't think I have enough time to learn a new deck. So I'm sticking with Bravo. I've adapted Bravo as much as I can, and I actually don't watch too much video content or study up on other players. So all the ideas for my deck are actually original for me, But then, you know, Kyle, my teammates would tell me, it's like, hey, I know you're playing this card. Guess what? You know, all these other people are actually also playing these cards. Like, well, I'm going in the right direction. So we're sticking to it. We're gonna keep adapting it as much as we can. My deck is pretty mid-range. I can go aggro or I can go fatigue.
Mm.
So
I think that's very important. It's just very similar to Prism.
being able to swing, you know, each way that you have to.
And that's good too, because Prism's supposed to be one of the decks that's popping up here. So if you can go toe to toe with Prism in terms of the longer game of the fatigue match, you'll be kind of in a good place.
That is a pretty tough matchup, but I think with the current list I have, it's definitely boosted up to at least
a little better.
50-50, if not 40-60.
Yeah. Cool. So you guys think Prism's the boogeyman now?
Prism.
There's a lot of boogeyman right now.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Do you guys like the whole like we don't know what the meta is going into nationals? Is that a win for you guys, or would you prefer? Did you almost like it better when it was chain or bus?
I think people want to say they don't know what the meta is, but they do. Are you familiar with Modern Magic, Louis?
I mean, kind of, but not really.
So this is how I've been kind of talking about the current state of our format. And sorry about my voice. It's talking through a mask for a whole weekend. It starts to go out a little bit.
Oh, you're good.
But in Modern Magic, there are always decks that keep other decks in check because there are a ton of like tier 1, tier 2 decks that you're going to see at every Modern event. No matter how many sets have come out, they'll just readapt it just a little bit or whatever. But those decks will always be represented. One of those is Tron. And Tron beats all the mid-range decks.
Right.
But Burn is always at a Modern event, and Burn crushes Tron, or else Tron would get out of hand and beat everything. And so there's always a layer of command there because you have the control decks that have a lot of life gain that beat the Burn decks, and then so on and so forth. Well, right now you've got like Oldhim, right? Well, Oldhim is going to be needs to have a really good pilot and a really good opponent at the same time to finish its matches because it's going to go super long and super late. But it has the same problem as Bravo where it loses to 20 spectral shields on the board. So Prism kind of keeps it in check a little bit, whereas it can fatigue out a lot of the other decks where it can't fatigue out Prism nearly as much. But Prism loses to like Dash and other decks in the format that just really give it a hard time. Where like so every deck is going to have its bad matchup right now, and I think it's going to be highly dependent on what you come across, or if you can figure out a way to make your deck that's good against most of the field not so bad against your bad matchup and kind of shore that matchup a little bit. So
that's what you're saying. You're happy getting to 40-60 because you're just shoring it up a little bit, and it's not as rough.
Right. As long as you don't play 46 of those decks, then in the tournament, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You just don't want any instant losses. You know, you just try to play the best game you can with what you have in your class or talent.
Right. That's why Prism does so well, right? Because it can kind of adapt.
So, all right, give me a few tips. Give viewers a few tips. Give players who it's their first draft experience. I've been saying on my channel the best way to experience Tales of Aria is to not invest in it, but instead to draft it and to play it. It's a set that's been created to be drafted. So help a new player, because I think draft's really tough. I think as a new TCG player, draft is really tough, and I love the new players. That's what I'm all about. So help the new players out.
Alex would be probably pretty good at explaining this more than I am. He's done much more draft than I have.
Yeah, look where you. I didn't even make day 2. I didn't even make top 64. So
I got lucky.
Take this with a grain of salt, right? No, but for draft, for the new player, I would say focus on enjoying it and learning the cards. Like when you're looking at a pack of cards, a lot of people I think have the mistake, especially as a newer player, of wanting to read every card in the pack, and like because it's overwhelming, right? Like you don't know every single card in this pack. Like how am I supposed to have time to read and pass, and while somebody else is trying to pass cards, and I think they get kind of like fluffed up a little bit where they're like, oh no, I need to pass, so I just pick something. I think it's important to have kind of like a game plan after the first couple of packs. So if you look at a pack and identify like one of the most like prevalent cards in the pack or the best card in the pack, and you stick with that, and then you go to the next pack and you're like, okay, I got lucky, there's another good card for that particular pick, and then you can just kind of roll from there. But if you see the next pack and there's nothing in that pack that goes with your game plan, go back to your roots. What cards do you know in the pack? Kind of like you need to kind of identify where you're comfortable. And then when you play a draft that maybe doesn't have a lot on the line, then you go out of your comfort zone so that you can learn the other cards.
Yeah.
Because the best way to learn the cards is by playing them, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to play the card, you're going to understand what it does, and then you're going to understand, like, I've done this 1,000 times. You can draft a set 1,000 times, and then all of a sudden you'll draw a 4-card hand, and you're like, oh my gosh, these cards interact this way. I never knew that,
Never
and
even thought about it.
Right, like for
the game
instance,
makes things happen that like you don't in your brain.
Right. For instance, like Chilling Ice Vein, somebody popped the little arm piece that does a damage. Well, that arm piece says when the attack deals damage, you get a frostbite token. Or the Chilling Ice Vein gives a frostbite token when it does damage, but the arm piece, when it pops, makes the attack do a damage. So you'll get a frostbite token from the attack, which is a really strange interaction because the arm piece has nothing to do with frostbite tokens.
Right.
So there's just little interactions you'll find here and there, but I think the important thing when drafting is really to pay attention to which color cards you're picking, and then also stick to the cards you know. And then when you're ready to go out of your comfort zone, try another hero and do the same thing.
That's cool. I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
What any other wisdom you guys would give, going into nationals, or just for new players who are hopping into, like what wisdom would you give them as we finish up?
What you got for them, Nam?
Honestly, I don't know. Man, lost for words, really.
The newer players, this game is really, I think it's really like easy to get into. I think a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed by the interactions. I've heard several people tell me the game is very complicated to play, and for a newer player, I would say this is how I learned any game that I ever played, is watching the live streams, watching the content. Before you even want to build a deck, or before you decide what you're going to build, I would, like, for instance, for Magic, I would go watch the SCG Tour tournaments. I would find one of the matches, I would watch it, and I would try to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
If you don't understand what's going on, you pause the video, you look up the card, and you try to figure it out. If you can't figure it out, continue on, and you try to figure it out later, and just keep watching the video. If you don't understand a card, pause it, read the card, figure out what's going on, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you can start to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You'll be like, okay, I would play the cards this way. Let's see if he does that. And then and then the more and more times you're correct on those assumptions, the better and better you'll start to learn that you're getting. And then you take the decks and you actually play them.
Yeah.
But I think that's the best advice I can give people, is just watch and learn and read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I would add to that, just like hop in and play too. Like you guys were saying, like you learn things through doing. And one of the things that always prevented me from really hopping in, I feel like, was the combat chain. I feel like I would get up against the player and he'd be like, "No, you broke your combat chain." I'd be like, "Well, I don't understand what the combat chain is," because the rule book is not super helpful when dealing with the combat chain.
Right.
So
I think
and then you just learn, right? You just learn how things and how everything affects by playing, by messing up. And I think one of the biggest reasons people don't play is that they're afraid to look stupid. And it's like, that's dumb. What looks dumber is like never giving it a shot. And like
treat it like any sport ever, right?
Yeah.
The best way that you can learn to get better at a game is to do what? Is to play against other people that are better than you.
Yeah.
If you can identify the players near you that are willing to help you, that are better than you, that is the best way to learn. We have raised so many players that like around in our Atlanta area that really weren't familiar with the game or weren't familiar with card games that much in general. And they've started to play with us, and they attribute a lot of their success to playing with people in the area that go to a lot of tournaments and are actually competitive with the game. So
that's good. Good stuff. Well, anything to leave the people with? Any other things you want to say about the tournament or anything like that?
I had a great time. Channel Fireball did a great job running the tournament. It ran super smooth. Shout out to all the judges and stuff for doing their job. We had a couple mishaps, but we can always do better. It's always always ways to do better.
Sure.
Just know in 13 rounds of a tournament, don't judge somebody for making a mistake after 13 rounds of a tournament. I mean, your brain starts to melt after that long. I mean,
I was fatiguing people, and I got fatigued myself. That's what happened.
Yeah, and you know, like the issue with that I have was that people were calling it, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you guys brought it up, I'll say a piece. But you know, people were calling it cheating, and like, you don't cheat in front of the camera with like the main pieces. If you cheat, you're cheating under the table or in your hand or whatever. Like people just jump to the worst possible conclusion, and like, it's a new set, it's a newer game, and people, like, first off, like, misplays happen all the time in every single trading card game ever. Now add that you're playing draft, now add that you're playing at the new set, now add that it's a new game, and so like, I don't think any of that should fall on you. And then the people who are complaining about the judges, like, get over yourself. Like, the judges are all new too. Like,
they're learning the interactions too.
Everyone's learning, and everyone had a freaking 13 round day. Like, everyone was in there. Like, people get over it. Like,
and I think the biggest thing there too is that was the third match he's ever played with the deck that he was using. So you know, that every time in draft you have 3 games with it and you're done. So you have to be learning those cards and those interactions for 3 games, and then you're going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen.
And the cameras are on you, and there's people watching, and it's a different experience.
And there's a $20,000 tunic staring you in the face. And
you're really feeling the pressure once you have a whole room around you and have, you know, plenty of viewers. The nerves gets to you sometimes.
For sure. And like, dude, do not let those jerks, is the worst word I can say on my channel. Don't let those jerks take away your excitement for what you've done. And like, don't let that happen. Because, dude, you should be proud of yourself. You should be excited. You should be ecstatic. And don't let people on Facebook bring you down. Just keep trucking. You don't watch their deck tech videos, so don't listen to their comments.
Haters are gonna hate, you know. You can't do anything about it.
Well, the more haters you are, the more popular you are.
It's true. It's true.
Well, cool. Well, guys, thank you so much, and congratulations to you and to the whole team too, for your win, and really good luck, unless you're playing against Team Kitchen Fable in the Nationals, and I don't know if you guys are going to Cincinnati, but good luck. Hopefully we'll see you again soon, and keep up the good work, everyone.
Absolutely. Look out for the card guys and all the future events.
There you go. Everyone, remember to be kind to the people around you. We'll see you again next video.